I've got a crazy idea. Okay, so one version of the world is the next 30 minutes we record the podcast. Another version of the world is we publish the retro as the 13th unlucky episode. Here's the retro, and then starting next week we do season 2.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Jam. This is not a normal episode because we have an honest team retro. We weren't expecting to share what we talk about in our call today, but we decided it'd be honest of us to do so. The first thing I have here is the most important thing for us to do differently about the podcast, or the most important thing to change.
I love the premise of this question because it's like we decided we're going to do this for 12 weeks and then we're going to make a go no go decision. And Ian's first question is not should we keep going? It's what should we change as we keep going?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess it's
great. It's a great question.
Would you rather us?
Nope. Great question. I just love the premise of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in with like a wrecking ball, but I'm curious about something. Like before I talk about change, because it has been like delightful to do this. It's been fun. The thing that I'm curious about is like, how is the podcast doing? Like, are there certain episodes that did well, like better than others? Like, so if we know that, should we be doing more of those things because our audience loves that? Like, do you have any insights on that, Ian?
So like concretely, like I just don't feel like we have outlier episodes. Like they all hang in this like 100, like, or I'm just particularly thinking about YouTube right now, like the 100 to 200 view range. And so it's like not enough of like a differentiate, like there's not like a spike or a really like a strong enough pull. It seems to me to for something like metrically to suggest we double down on a certain type of thing.
Yeah.
What about clips from the pod? Are there specific clips that popped off?
Yeah, like the funny ones. There was a specific one that really popped off. It was a funny one, an Irtefa joke. It was a few months ago on LinkedIn. Yeah, Tony's clips did really well as well. In terms of transistor, it's kind of the same trend that Ian is saying. There's like no particular spikes. The only like big spikes were the first 2 episodes. So like the first episode got 1,000 views on YouTube, and it got the most listens out of all because we launched it, right? It was like a launch, and we emailed everybody. And then after that, the second episode got like half. And then ever since the second episode, we've stayed around like 200 views on YouTube and around like 30 listens on podcasts on Spotify and Apple. So like that's how it's performing. I have seen it start to go up. Like there was like a midpoint, like an episode 5, episode 6, where we were like getting lower views than we are now. So let's say we were at a point where like we were getting like 120 views, 100, and now we're back to like 160, 170 with like the newer episodes. So it's like slowly trending back up, but nothing like huge or major. So like that's how it's performing.
Danny, were you about to say something?
Yeah. The numbers are the numbers, but the truth, like the macro here is we're still in the law of small numbers. And so maybe the meta here is like, what would make this effort worth it? Like we all spend like an hour a week. Ian spends even more time editing, takes a long time. Ivana spends so much time like writing up the chapters, writing all the social media stuff. Like this has become like a focus for the team. Mm-hmm. Most things we do get a much broader audience. What would make this worth it?
Yeah. I mean, what would make it worth it? Like in my feelings, it's worth it already. But
why do you this stream of consciousness? Like why do you say that?
I say that because like anecdotally, we have a lot of evidence, right, from our users that they're enjoying it. So it's a small audience. It's not huge, but the audience that is there is engaged and liking it and becoming like even closer Jam advocates, right? So let's say like, if we're only getting 200 listens per episode. But those 200 people are all understanding what Jam is all about, are listening to us talk. They really like what we're having to say. That's 200 people that can then tell other people about it, right? Like, I don't think that to me is already worth it. And it's 200 people that there's potential to start conversations with, to trade tips, to find out what they're doing, and to bring them in closer to our community. And it's also something I enjoy doing. So to me, that makes it already worth it. What could we do to make it even more worth it? And this is just like stream of consciousness, it's just me talking now. Like, I didn't think about this beforehand, but so if we have like 200 people, right, that are listening to every episode and they're commenting and they're saying like, keep going, and this is great, and thanks guys, and so insightful, and whatever, and this is what we're hearing from them. Okay, so then how do we connect with them even more instead of just on the podcast? And how can we really like make that be something awesome if they're already there? Can we talk to them? Can we invite one of them on the podcast? Can we, I don't know, like establish a deeper connection now that they're listening to us?
I think that one of the special things about Jam as an entity is that one of our beliefs as a company is that we don't hide behind a boring anonymous company, which is how companies have been built for the last, however long there's been corporations. And I love that we're bringing the humans out from behind. And I love that we're trying to connect with our users who are also building things. Like, this feels ethos, like Ivana said, in my heart, this feels like the right thing that Jam should be doing. In startups, there's like, you can change the product or you can change its distribution.
Yeah.
I wonder if where we get the most impact. I wonder if we should change the product, if that will help increase the impact, or if we should change how we're distributing it, if we'll get more out of that.
I think it's distribution, but the challenge with distribution is that because this is so niche, right? Like, the only people who care about the Building Jam podcast are the people who use Jam. Like, that's really
all 130,000. Like,
all 130,000. But we can't spam 130,000 users every week with like a new podcast episode in their email. And so that's why distribution gets complicated, because those 130,000 users are in 170 countries, and they are all in different types of communities besides being part of the Jam community. And we don't want to start spamming them. So how do I optimize distribution in that scenario?
Here's how you do it. Okay. And I'm going to be very unemotional about this.
Okay.
From purely numbers perspective. Like, if you're thinking about, okay, how do we grow this thing? How do we distribute it? And again, I'm removing emotions from here. Mm-hmm. We have to make the shorts go viral. Like, there is no other, like, that's how you reach other audience. That's how you reach more people. And that's how you get them back to the podcast, get them back to the product. You need to make those shorts go viral. That's the only way to do it. Like, without like ads or all these other things.
Yeah. And you think that those shorts will actually drive people to the podcast? Because like when I think about like podcast clips and stuff, I always see it as like more like a repurposing opportunity to also get engagement on another platform. I don't see it as an effective way to drive people from one platform to the other.
But what happens in that platform? Like, think about the human that you put up a short in LinkedIn, they're watching it, right? Now I'm going to bring the emotion here. They are building an emotional connection with our product, with our brand. That's happening. They're not going to probably sign up right away, but you're building something there. And bit by bit, they're going to come back to it. They're going to check out our product. They're going to go to our website and see how we're going to add value to them. It doesn't matter if it's in LinkedIn, if it's on YouTube, or wherever. You're creating an emotional connection. Yeah. What are you going to say?
All right. I think they'll click your profile is the first thing they'll do to see what you're about and like who, like, what is this? Or just like more concretely, I think that's what that flow looks like. It's like we'll reach them, they click the profile and decide, oh, is this something I care about or not? But I think like with the goal of shorts that can go viral, I think we need to have hotter takes, I think, or we need to talk about like, it needs to be about like a topic that is the topic in startup land this week. It doesn't need to be, like I say this, it doesn't need to be this way, but to me that seems like I would have that has a better, stronger hypothesis for how 1 million people would see something. Yeah. If it's like this happened and we're reacting to this thing that happened that people are talking with their colleagues about at work and reminds them the conversation of the person they talked about with it yesterday. And like, I don't think it looks like us saying, oh, this launch was awful or whatever. Like I think it looks like us being like we can do it in a jam way, but I'm curious if there's a segment, like, I don't know if it's like this week on tech Twitter or like I don't know what the framing is for us of like, we show, like, it's something where we show something and we're saying how that's what we think about what's been shown. Because I think visually, like, to have some people talking like I noticed with the all in clips, like they always show you something. It zooms in on the title of the news article, or it shows you something.
But that to me feels like we would be changing the product a little bit. Like, I think that we have made a few choices here where, like, for there's like a potential clip that is funnier and more entertaining and speaks to something that is general, but then it's not about jam, and that's not what we're trying to promote about the podcast. Like, we want people to get hooked on the podcast because they care about behind the scenes of jam, not because they care about our opinions on the latest Twitter feud and tech. Like, I think that's been, at least before, like, for the past 12 weeks, that's been how we have been thinking about this. And
I'll add something to that. I think one of the things that, like, it's very normal, and like, kudos to them. Like, whenever we think about talking about current tech topics, we immediately think about all in. But we don't have to be that. We don't have to talk about things like that. I'll give you an example where Ian went to the Figma conference, right? And I think that's a very positive thing to talk about. Like, and it's a real and a unique perspective. I think that's how we need to talk about things, and which is us. We're not faking it. But we don't have to be all in. Like, we don't have to like talk like that. We can be very positive, share our unique perspective. And yes, it's not going to be as spicy, but that's okay.
I mean, there's some spice, but that cannot be the hook for listening to the podcast. That's like an added bonus.
Question for you. Just like, remove yourself from the situation for a moment, ignore jam. You know, like the movie Yesterday where the Beatles don't exist? Imagine you're in the movie.
So good.
Yesterday.
That's a great movie.
If you heard about, there's some startup out there where the founders and a few teammates have started podcasting each week, like what's actually happening inside the company. Like, if you just heard that, what would be your interest level in that?
From 1 to 10? I feel like
it depends on what they're sharing. Like, if it is like the startup podcast by Alex Bloomberg, I'm going to tune in every single week to listen to it, because the reason is he's sharing some real stuff, like real stuff. And I'm not saying that we're that, but he is talking about things that are actually like happening in very detailed, right? Like, when I think about that, like from our perspective, I think like growing the engineering team is a good example of exactly that. Like Danny talking about like hiring a new designer and like what are the hard parts about it. Like, I think those are the things that it's not just our existing users, but also people who will probably be building companies or will actually find value from what we talk about, will actually listen to the podcast. Like, I think that's why I'm here as a listener.
That makes me think that maybe we're sort of kind of locked into this like weekly structure of like, we have to talk specifically about this week. And sometimes like the biggest thing this week is not the most interesting thing that we could possibly talk about. Like, maybe there's just some more planning that we can do to have like better topics.
There's like, there's product and there's distribution. It's like, are you selling something people want and they want so much? I think it's so cool that they like tell other people like that and then it's when they actually, after they sign up for whatever it is that you're selling, do they stick with it because it fulfilled the promise? And so what Irtefa talked about is like, well, if that's the promise, here's how the product should adapt. But I wonder if enough of our users, if enough people have even heard that there is a startup out there that's sharing each week what it's like to actually build the startup, like most cathartic listen in tech for real builders. And so I wonder if that's a story we want to try to get out there.
Yeah. I feel like that's sort of what we tried to do, like with our social media strategy, which when I say strategy, I mean like just posting when there's a new episode with a clip on it, right? That's our distribution. And that's how we've sort of been trying to frame it, right? Which is like get behind the scenes of a startup. This is how we're building Jam, get unfiltered conversations, listen to it all. Like that's sort of how we've been marketing it. But maybe it's just not enough to just post when you have a new episode and say it. Like maybe there's more we can do here, right?
So not my idea. This is Ivana's idea. I've repackaged it for this moment, which is what if we renew for 12 more episodes. It's Building Jam season 2, but it's last season was building in public and the next season is learning in public. And on each episode, we learn from another startup together. So it's like Jam learns from Partiful. Jam learns from Figma. Jam learns from Cloudflare. And we bring on like a PM or someone in the product org from each of these companies.
I wouldn't want to lose the like behind the scenes element though. Like I wonder if there's like an opportunity for us to like bring in a guest, learn from the guest, Jam learns, but also just like swap experiences. Like if we're talking to a later stage startup, we could ask like, how was it when you were Series A? Did this happen to you? This is what we're going through. And it's kind of like an experience swapping.
Yeah, I would love that. Like how Partiful builds product. And then it's like at Jam, we're having this challenge building product. What are you doing? You know, I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
I really picked on Partiful. I just want to know everything.
Are you researching Partiful right now because of your growth research?
No. I just love them as a startup. Delightful product.
Yeah, their branding and the social is so cool.
So good. So cool. Whoever runs their Twitter is amazing.
Yeah. I love Partiful too. Very cool vibes.
So that's awesome.
Let's learn.
Let's
okay,
go.
Season 2, here we come.